Big change to the college football playoff today, something that the SEC and Big Ten have been fighting for, and we're not done with those two fighting yet on behalf of their members, which is about half of college football at this point. But according to the college football playoff press release I just got, says the college football playoff board managers today unanimously revised the qualifying criteria for the 12-team event to now include the five highest ranked college champions plus the next seven highest ranked teams as determined by the college football playoff selection committee. So what does that mean? Okay, it gets rid of one of the biggest impediments of stupidity that we've had here lately in college football, and there's no shortage of it. So this has been the biggest one moving forward in the future, though, which is that no longer will the Pac-12 have a walk-in bid, so to speak, to the college football playoff. Now, I don't think this eliminates the college football, the Pac-12 from having one, but I think it specifies here that the highest five ranked teams. So will that be Oregon State and Washington State? Probably not, if we're being honest. But here's the big punchline. It says, under the 12-team playoff format that begins in the fall, the four highest ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4 and receive the first round bye, while teams seeded 5 through 12 will play one another in the first round on the home field of the highest team. Team 5 plays 12, and yada, yada, yada. The quarterfinals and semifinals will play in the Year 6 bowl games. The national championship will continue to be at a neutral site. No conference will automatically qualify, and therefore there will be no limit on the number of participants from each conference. So everything is going well so far except that first sentence. The four highest ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4. And each will receive a first round bye. Well, we've seen this a lot, and this is not how it should be. And this is one thing that the Big Ten and the SEC are aggravated about, that and the money, and they're correct. So let's take this from the Georgia perspective. Last year, in 2021, Georgia qualified as the 3 seed. Alabama was the 1. In the scenario in 2021, Georgia would have played a home game in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh would have gotten a bye. That's not right. Okay? That's not. So you could say Pittsburgh. You could say whoever would have won the Pac-12. One of those two would have gotten in over Georgia as a team getting a bye. That's wrong. Like if we're getting this right, let's get it right. But like that's not the way to do it. So how could this affect the SEC in the future? Well, I think the biggest thing is you've gotten rid of one of these silly conference championships. Quite frankly, it should be the top 4 conference champions get in, and that's it. The fifth one, which could be the Mountain West, it could be the Atlanta, whatever is out there. It could be the Pac-12. It could be the Pac-12. It could be the MAC. It could be, the Sun Belt. Those teams do not belong in this tournament. They just don't. And, we've had one team in there, Cincinnati. They got their skulls kicked in by Alabama. This should be about real football. Now, I say that having gone to a very small school, having gone to, we were the tiny schools, but we don't belong in these situations, okay? That's not where it should be. That, this is for legitimate, high level. Nobody needs to see Coastal Carolina get their brains kicked in by Ohio State. Nobody needs to see Oregon hurting, Liberty and just pounding their endowment into the ground. I mean, we don't need to see that. We need to see actual teams playing. The UCFs of the world, they're in the Big 12 now. So all that crybaby stuff, that's all gone. It needs to be that we're playing, this should be legitimate, who are the best teams in college football. And if one of those teams is one of the best teams, fine. They'll just make it in as one of the top 12 teams, one of the top 6 at-larges. But winning the Sun Belt, that should not, we just gotta be better than this. And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But that's up to Greg Sankey and the Big Ten commissioner to get right. And how long will that take? I don't know. But if I'm Georgia, the number one threat to me, if in all of this, if I'm in the SEC or the Big Ten, is that if you look at the ACC, they essentially have two powers. They have Clemson, they have Florida State. Georgia could beat Clemson by 50. Clemson could lose another game in their league and lose another game they could lose to South Carolina, Georgia. They could lose to NC State. So long as they win the ACC and get to the college football playoff as a 10-3 team, losing those games, they would still get a bye. Well, that's insanity, okay? Same scenario. That's just next year. That totally could happen next year. Let's take about Florida State. Florida State could lose to Florida in the final game of the year. That's not going to happen, but whatever. Florida State could lose to Florida. They could lose to, let's just say they're playing LSU to start the season. Something like they could lose those two games, lose a game to Clemson on the road, but beat Clemson in the ACC championship game. They would be a 10-3 conference champion, having an advantage over whoever the runner-up in the SEC is, who very well could be a 12-1 team and legitimately the number 2 team in the country. And that's just the ACC scenario of it. Nevertheless, the ACC, I don't know which is worse between the ACC and the Big 12, but they're neither of them worse than the ridiculousness of, even as the 12 seed, adding Coastal Carolina or Georgia State or Appalachian State. It just should not be happening. And for essentially the best loser of the SEC or Big Ten championship game, which will probably be the SEC champion, the SEC runner-up, for them to have to play a silly game against, Memphis. I mean, we're wasting our time. We're wasting Memphis's time. We're wasting Georgia's time. We're wasting everyone's time. They don't get that bye. The bye should go to the best 4 teams. It doesn't matter if they win the leagues or not. The league champions of the SEC and the Big Ten, they're probably going to get the bye anyway. All right? Would that be the case with the ACC and the Big 12? It would sometimes. It wouldn't all the time. But, if we're going to really do this, let's really do it. Let's not sort of do this. And this is what we have been so incremental in college football that we've wound up in the problems that we've got, which are players not really legitimately being paid. All of a sudden, they have all the power. They can do NIL deals. They can do collective situation. I mean, we let it go out of control. What happened with conference realignment? We held on like crazy, and this is not as bad, but then the dam broke, and you got Washington and Oregon playing the Big Ten. You got ACC is at Stanford and Cal. So why don't we do the right thing now and put the best 4 teams, no matter if they win their league or not, get the bye? Not Pitt. Not 10-3 Pitt or 9-4 Pitt, who barely beat Tennessee or something like that. Let's do it right. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. But I understand how this works. I was on the board of a college, an institution for 9 years. I know we have to go by consensus, but after a while, consensus is going to take their ball and go home, and that's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC. They're just going to check out of this. They're just going to say, okay, well, this was fun, but this has gotten stupid. We can form a national champion without the ACC and the Big 12, and that's what Florida State's scared to death about, and Clemson is too, I think. But that's what those guys are scared to death about, is they're going to get left out. Well, they are going to get left out. They should be the ones that are advocating for a better system. Then things won't go away. But at some stage here, it's not right now. They're making it better, but boy, it's not where it needs to be. And still, so Greg Sankey's got, this is important because it's unfair for the second best team in the country that happens to play in this. This is just like European soccer, okay? And sometimes the best 2 teams are Spanish teams. Well, they don't punish Real Madrid because Barcelona and them play in the same state, same country. They both go in Champions League. They both get separated out and all play. We're not doing that. And if we're going to do this the right way, let's do it the right way. But we seem intent on sort of crawling our way to a solution, and that's been a real bad thing for college football. College football is not good at that. We're not good a lot, to be honest with you. But that's something that's really the sport needs to think about its future, and the teams that are in the quote weaker leagues right now, they really need to think about it. I mean, the Big 12 and the ACC could definitely be in real trouble in about 8 years here. But, I know we're not worried about 8 years from now, except somebody talking to you. But look, that was the big news today. I still think that the Big Ten and the SEC have got to get that top 4 thing squared away. There's no reason for the number 2 team in the country to play an extra game at home, even if it's against Liberty or Coastal or, Boise State. That shouldn't be happening. That should not be happening. Get it right.